All right, I'm Blaze. Welcome to episode 4 of Claude Code from Zero, and today we're going to be talking about skills. So in the previous video, we talked about like Claude MD, rules, memory, and all these preloaded composables that we can use to kind of give Claude that strong foundation as soon as we initialize to hit the ground running. But when we strictly use those, there's a problem that arises, especially with our limited context. Um, if we only put information in like the Claude MD or the rules, and it's getting loaded every single time, then anytime we include information about tools that don't get used in literally every single workflow, we're just wasting context. So an example is something like the Jira CLI. Like let's say we were using that. I'm not going to use Jira in every single workflow within a project, most likely. So every single time I initialize Claude in that CWD, though, if there's Jira stuff in the Claude MD, then I just have a chunk of my context that just immediately gets preloaded with that Jira stuff, and there's nothing I can do about that. And so every time a workflow doesn't use the Jira CLI, I just wasted that much context. And as you start to compound that effect over, several tools from larger repos, we could be working with a handful of tools. Your context window can quickly just get burned, and it's for things that are irrelevant to what you're actually trying to do. And so the way to solve that is to use lazy loaded composables or skills. And so what skills are a way to define a specific tool or a specific workflow or something that doesn't happen every single time, but you do need to have context for in a way that doesn't get preloaded every single time, just gets loaded when you need it. And so I kind of pulled up the doc here, and you can kind of see skills are available in every section, like built-in commands. You can kind of extend, so it's almost like a custom command. Commands and skills used to be separate things, but recently they've been kind of consolidated. So as you define your skills, you'll be able to use slash commands for your own custom tooling as well. And then you can see kind of the general syntax is that we can create a skill directory within our .claude, and then we create another directory within that that we want to name as whatever we want the skill name to be. And then within that, we add a skill.md file, and that's where we can define. As far as what that looks like, the structure is pretty reminiscent of what the Claude MD looks like, except for similar to how we use the rule to limit the file types in the previous examples. There is a YAML prefix for skills as well. The minimum that we need is a name and a description. So the way that this works is rather than Claude reading the whole skill every single time upon initialization, it just reads the descriptions, and then that way it knows what skills are available, and if you ask it for something that would pertain to one, it knows enough to go get the skill and load the rest, but it doesn't have to load everything. Um, so the name and description is the minimum. There are also some other configurations we can add that we'll talk about a little bit later probably, or we can actually just go ahead and cover them. So we can disable model invocation, which basically means that we can only use our skill as a slash command where we invoke it. If this is not disabled, then also the agent can automatically use skills as it starts to go through workflows. I tend to leave it enabled because I would rather the agent just infers that it needs to go use my skills. And there's a few other flags that we can use. I won't get super in the weeds here because, you're welcome to read the docs. But yeah. So, and you can also specify what model a skill should use. So like if your main thread is using Opus, but this skill in particular would be fine with Haiku, you can set it with the model parameter to only use Haiku. And then hooks we'll talk about in a future video. But for now, I think that's a good description. Let's see what it looks like. So I'm going to open up my code base, and I actually pre-configured one to see if something would occur, and it did. But we're going to try again because I am feeling lucky. So I think I already have a Claude instance right here in my portfolio site. I'm just going to show you how I realistically set up a lot of skills. This is a pretty common pattern for me. So like, let's say I want to use Vercel's Agent Browser CLI within this project. Pretty often the way I do this, I don't want to load a bunch of tool stuff into my Claude MD because I'm not always going to use that tool. But in the workflows I do, I need to know about it. So what I do is I tend to just go to whatever documentation is available for said tool. For Agent Browser, it's on the GitHub README. And then I just copied this README verbatim. And I will go back to my code base. I'll paste it into a file. So I have this for cell.md with all the CLI information in it. And then I will just go to Claude, tag that for cell.md file. And then I'll say, hey, write a skill to use this. And then Claude should go and write a skill. Now, one thing I'm just going to tell you off the rip is for some reason Claude sucks at writing skills. It does good writing the skill, but it sucks at the YAML prefix for some reason. And it sucks also at the directory structure. Like about every other time, it will not get the structure right where it creates the name of the skill with the directory and then puts the generic skill MD within that directory. It'll try and just name the file, but it'll get the writing right, and then you can just make a few tweaks. So if we have to do that, that's not the end of the world. So it should be kind of writing out this skill. I wouldn't think this would take too long. It'll just take this raw README, trim it down to what's most relevant to like a skill-based thing, like what it needs to use, and then it'll save it in the .claude under skills. And hopefully it doesn't take forever. Okay, yeah, there we go. And yeah, so like I said, it's gonna try and create it as a file like this. I don't know why it does this. But do be aware of this, because if that happens to you and you don't fix it, your skill won't work correctly. So it looks like it added the skill. We're just gonna have to do some tweaks. Not GitHub. Skills. Yeah, so it kind of did it improperly, but you can see it did write the skill correctly. And then it's got some tips and whatnot. So it has all the information it needs to use the Vercel agent browser, and we can make it lazy load this only when we need the Vercel agent browser. So that's kind of the power here. But one thing we got to do is fix this. So the subdirectory is what names the skill. So we'll say agent browser within skills, and then the file goes in that directory, and then I will rename it. And I'm just going to say skill.md. So it's a generic name. And now we should be good. Just double check that's in there. And then the other thing we got to do is there has to be a YAML prefix. So add this, and then it is name. So whatever you want to name the skill, I'm gonna call it agent browser, and then description. So you just give a brief description of the tool. So Vercel's CLI-based agentic browser solution. I could also go a little bit further in depth, and then like I said earlier, we could add like model agent, or I think it's model. Yeah, so disable model invocation and all those. I could add those. I'm not gonna for this example, but the idea is like you can kind of configure the skill for how it works. But once this is done, and then we'll open up the terminal, and we'll go to the CWD we want, Claude. If I did this right, now we should be able to just run agent browser. And now we have a custom / command where we can manually invoke that skill, and it'll go do that. So I could go like agent browser, and then I could say go explore google.com, and it would go and open Google or whatever, and it would use that skill for how to use the browser. Or if I say something along the lines of like go do this on the browser, it should just infer and go open it up with that skill. So it'll load that skill into context and then use it to do the task. That's basically it for skills. They're not super complex. They're really simple to use, but they are super powerful. Arguably, probably the most powerful of all of the custom composables, in my opinion. Pretty much everybody I know who does a lot of this uses a pretty skill-heavy approach. You get into agents and stuff too, or sub-agents, but yeah, even with them, they need skills. So this is kind of the next step. Once you get the baseline stuff with Claude MD down, you're going to start building a lot of skills. But yes, so that is going to be it for this episode. In the next video, we will talk about sub-agents. But thank you. I'll see you in the next one.